In the lead up to the upcoming AI and cybersecurity event, Girl Security is speaking with the women defining the field. Understanding the ethics of AI has become less of a thought experiment in recent years. Rather, now it's a necessity for the preservation of democracy. While the EU and the UN have enacted legislation to regulate AI, the criticism of the US is that we are not doing enough to protect our basic principles. Going into a year with a series of tumultuous elections that will define governments, how can we preserve democracy and democratic values in an AI-driven future? Hi, my name is Sally Brown, a Girl Security Community member, and today I have the honor of discussing this question with Merve Hickok, the founder of AI Ethicists, the winner of the Lifetime Achievement Award, Women in AI of the Year, and the president of the Center of AI and Digital Policy. So AI has become the entirety of your advocacy and policy work. What does ethics in AI mean to you?
Well, thank you so much, Sally, for having me, first of all, and appreciate first girl security and what girl security is trying to do in the space, and you all actively contributing to the mission as well, and happy to be a supporter as well. Well, what does ethics of AI mean to me? I think we can split that into a few things. Definitely what we do and how we collect with the data, like how we go about deciding what kind of data to collect, what kind of problems that we try to solve with data, who is benefiting from such data collection, and the AI systems that we build on top of those, how we keep governments, private companies accountable for their impact, and really trying to imagine a better world where these technologies are used to protect our civil rights, human rights, environment, and used for the better, and not really for surveillance purposes or suppress people's freedoms and liberties.
So the UN and other international organizations have forged agreements aimed at fostering the sustainable development of AI. However, to safeguard human rights, what additional consensus will be imperative? What challenges may AIOs face in accomplishing a shared ethical code in AI use by governments?
We have seen over the last few years, we have seen a lot of, to your point, developments in both by governments as well as the international organizations in this fora. I think at this point, there is no question about the impact of AI and that the need for governing AI. However, there are still different perspectives on how to go about governing it. So I think we are seeing some convergences on the approaches, but there's also some divergences. And what we suggest in terms of facing those challenges are, let's agree on the basics that human rights are priority, civil liberties and freedoms and human dignity is our priority, and how can we then go about protecting and nourishing those. And there's a variety of tools that you can use for that, right? One, it's not just one answer. It is a combination of answers, and both these international organizations and governments are trying to figure out a good combination of those tools, whether it is code of conduct, whether it is voluntary commitments, voluntary product and risk assessments, or actual regulations that bring on liability and accountability to both the governments and companies. Reporting, things like incident reportings, and making these AI systems more transparent to both the users as well as those impacted by the system. So all of these organizations are trying to figure out what is best for um, their mission, for their mandate, and then the governments are obviously trying to figure out what is best for their own population, right? We need to take into account the diversity of cultures. There is not a single value, not a single solution to this. So I think some of the challenges are coming from the global nature of these products, global nature of the impact, but then appreciation for diversity and heritage as well.
So you talked about transparency. How do we balance transparency for companies and corporations while also allowing companies and corporations to protect the secrets and the technology they work so hard to create?
Great question. And again, this is not a binary answer, right? Companies can be transparent, and I would say companies and governments, by the way, because it is not only developed or used by companies, but also governments. There isn't any like one single level of transparency, so you can think of as providing providing information on the data provenance. Where does this data come from? How was it collected in the first place? Was it legal to collect that data in the first place? Right? You can be transparent about the objective of the AI model that you have built and deployed. Why is it used? What kind of a problem it is trying to solve? And who decided that that problem should be solved in that way? Being transparent about who the stakeholders are, both those developing and those impacted. Being transparent about the limitations of AI systems. It is not a solution to everything. These systems are their capabilities, their performance, or really depend on how we build them. So being like really transparent about those, and then overall transparency that an AI system is used in the first place, right? A lot of the times you might be interacting in an AI system, or you might be subject to an AI system, whether in your government transactions, public services, or private, many apps, that you use on your phone, at the very least, use AI. So just being transparent that these are in use is also a step in the right direction. A lot of the times we don't even know that AI is used being in the background to make a determination. So transparency may mean a lot of things in different levels.
There's been a call for a document that outlines protections for Americans, the so-called AI Bill of Rights, as described by even the White House. In places like China, where AI is being used to support a surveillance state, such a concern seems necessary. But in democracies like the US, where we avow our devotion to democratic values, why do we need an AI Bill of Rights?
Well, that document, the blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights that was published from White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, is one of the fundamental documents in AI policy in the US right now. And like you said, it underlines our civil rights, protection of civil rights and freedoms. Although that is embedded, like respect for such civil rights and human dignity and liberties are embedded in our being an American, that they are not necessarily protected, right? And so we need to ensure these systems are not used in a discriminatory way, intentionally or unintentionally, when you're applying for housing, when you're applying for a job, when you're applying for credit or trying to get a mortgage or applying for a college admission, right? One, the systems can result in discriminatory results. And without transparency, without accountability, without such protection of civil rights, we might not get to the bottom of it. And second, these systems bring new challenges because they get so granular information about us. You can collate the data sets from different points and get very granular information about you and me.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be used in either for purposes of political suppression, for surveillance, or disinformation, etc., or political targeting. So just because that we believe in civil rights and human rights doesn't mean that we have fail-proof protections for it right now with AI systems. Hence the call to pay more attention to this and make sure that we have the protections in place.
How might that be enforced by the government or at the federal level?
So in terms of the federal government, how federal government is using AI, AR systems, we have seen the recent executive order from the president that not only tasks different government departments as well as the agencies on how they should use, but the president has also tasked Office of Management and Budget to actually create a guidance document. So being more specific about what governments can and cannot do and why. So that document is being currently being drafted and finalized. However, to put those legislation in place with the executive branch can only do so much. It can impact how AI is used in the government, but for private sector, we need legislation. So there is also a lot of work happening in the Congress, or at the Senate and the House, on how to go about regulating AI as well.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to the more so the local level. Generative AI can be used to spread misinformation and disinformation that can make a major impact on elections. It is well understood that democracy starts at the grassroots level, and local politics is often the most susceptible to such a threat as disinformation and misinformation. What can local governments and everyday citizens, everyday people, practice to protect their basic rights and local elections?
Great question, and obviously that question is even more important this year, right?
Yes.
With the elections in the US, but also 2024 happens to be the year with the most elections globally. So we have more than 60 general or national level elections coming up this year. So we're concerned about the impact at a global level. But it's a great question about, what can citizens and local governments can do. I think the first thing starts with understanding what these systems can do, going to the trusted sources. So, for example, if you're a citizen, going directly to, for example, a local government or an elected official's websites, and getting the information directly from the authoritative source, and maybe not fully dependent on social media to get your news. We all do. We all, scroll through the news and the updates on social media. So consider that as like a complementary source, but always going back to the authoritative and objective sources to get the information. So that's one thing. Second thing is definitely being more maybe involved in the local politics to the extent that you can, so you can differentiate between policy priorities, who's who, and on the local officials like Secretary of States or local election officers, a lot to do with capability building, right? So we expect a lot of pressure and disinformation and misinformation that will be targeted for these officials as well. So giving them the tools to protect, to detect as well. And then some of it is not everything is malicious, right? So there's the element of misinformation. You know, again, if you have any questions about elections, electoral process, how to go about vote, where to vote, whether you can vote at a certain time, go to um, the official website or official channels and check there, and maybe not ask the question on a chatbot that you might find more convenient, but these are systems that are not accurate all the time. So instead of depending on those systems, making sure that you go to the real sources.
So essentially, the best way still remains trusting not trusting oneself, but trusting oneself to find the proper sources and go to the direct channels. So far, we've covered challenges to consensus, digital authoritarianism, and election security, and focus on how AI can threaten democracy. Instead of how it can threaten democracy, how can AI actually be used to aid democracy and even strengthen?
Uh, to your point, there's always two sides to the coin, right? How we go about using AI systems to enhance democracy, democratic values. There are also a lot of opportunities. So when we say democratic values, what does that mean? That means access to quality information. That means respecting minority rights over majority. That means free elections. It means free journalism, right? So there are so many things that actually falls under those democratic values that AI can be used. So it can be used, for example, to get more people virtually on these discussions. It can allow for remote voting, for not voting for main elections, but for example, local level, almost like virtual councils, city forums, citizen forums, etc., to discuss issues at a local level. So you can be enabled to do that. It can, to a certain extent, help us with, cybersecurity, national security, and overall to detect malicious actors as well. These things move so fast and at scale that our human capabilities need to be complemented by AI systems. So there are a lot of positive uses in cybersecurity and national security to detect some of those as well.
So it comes down to finding a way that AI can complement individuals and society and support us rather than allowing it to kind of spin out of control, almost. Balance of working with. Okay. Before we conclude, can you describe the goals and objectives of your work of AI ethicists and some of your other involvements?
Absolutely. So I wear multiple hats. So on the AI ethicist side, a lot of my work is research and advocacy on, fighting for social justice, impact of AI systems on, or like issues related to bias, human rights, and also, doing a lot of teaching about these issues as well, like creating awareness and increasing capabilities. The other hat that I'm wearing is with Center for AI and Digital Policy, as you introduced me. So at the center, we train future AI policy leaders around the world. So we have semester-long AI policy clinics where we have, in our current semester, 350 people from 85 countries who are attending this semester-long training, so they can be more involved in the AI policy conversations, shaping those conversations in their respective communities and countries. And our work at the center, our mission is to ensure AI policies and digital policies protect human rights, democratic values, and rule of law. So we merge the human rights and democratic values language into or embed those into AI policy and regulatory recommendations as well. So again, we want more democratic participation. We want more people, more parts of the society to be involved in these conversations, to have a say, a voice in how these policies and regulations are shaped, how to keep the governments and companies accountable, and how we can go about imagining a better future for ourselves, for our society, and for our democracy.
Well, getting more people involved on that topic. For a young woman interested in pursuing a career in AI and AI policy work, what advice would you offer to help her?
Well, it is always amazing to me when I speak to young women like yourself that how conscious and engaged you already are. And I wish I was at that age. And I think it took me a lot longer to realize some of the issues around me, with full disclosure. So exactly, better than never, better than late, better late than never. So I really appreciate the work that you are already engaged in, these questions that you and your peers are asking. We so much need that. We need the voice of the youth, and as you progress through your life and career, continuing to have that fight. But in pursuing a career in AI policy and policy work, this might mean a lot of things. For me, it was the intersection of AI policy and human rights. So, fighting for human rights and civil rights. For others, it might be the intersection of national security. It might be intersection of trade and commerce. There might be many different ways to go about it. So I think first, trying to figure out what interests you the most is the first step, I would say. And then from then on, trying to engage with those, just like you're doing, engaging with those who are already in this field, and listening, asking questions, joining the organizations. I'll give a shout out to, just as I'm a fan of girl security, I'm a big fan of Encode Justice and Fidutam, two youth organizations doing amazing work to bring the voices of youth into AI policy conversations. So I think joining forces, finding where you would like to be more involved, and then joining forces and creating that synergy, and would be my first suggestions.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Merve Hickok, for joining Girls Security for today's AI and cybersecurity discussion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Appreciate it.